Nest cameras. They are Nest cameras, plural, and that whoever did this may have smashed those cameras, plural. So
everything shared is rooted in confirmed reports from major news organizations, data open to the public, and direct quotes from identified individuals. If a detail relies on just one witness, I'll make that clear. When I offer my own take, I'll flag it as my personal theory. This video doesn't identify anyone as an official person of interest in Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. This remains a live federal probe. Nancy Guthrie is still gone. Her relatives deserve the truth, and this channel prioritizes hard evidence. You're already familiar with that front porch camera. You know it cut out at 1:47 a.m. on February 1st. You've seen the clips. That hand in a glove reaching for the glass. The cold focus on killing the one lens, seeing faces, tags, and anyone walking up to the house. As you know, agents had to hit up Google's cloud servers directly just to salvage what was left after the device was fried. That specific detail has been talked about a million times already, which makes sense since that doorbell is the smoking gun proving the kidnapper planned this out. They had the layout down. They knew which lens to kill, and they did. But I want to pivot to a different angle today. While everyone is obsessed with the footage from the front door, there was an entirely different tier of protection at Nancy's place that's been totally overlooked. Multiple lenses covering the back, the sides, and the pool. Motion sensors that investigators reportedly pulled and found to be working. A few of those units weren't even bothered when Nancy was taken. The Bureau got the files, and a contact close to the case shared with ABC News what those sensors recorded during the crime. Those units, working perfectly, triggered by movement, watching the back half of the Guthrie lot, saw, and I'm using their exact words here, quote, nothing out of the ordinary. When an insider on this federal kidnapping case was asked to describe that realization, the reality that the back and side perimeter saw absolutely nothing the night Nancy vanished. They used one word: odd. If you've been watching this, that should rattle you. See, when it comes to federal agents, people who aren't known for being theatrical, odd isn't just a fluke. It isn't just a mystery. It means the logic is broken. The rhythm is off. And in a high-stakes federal hunt for a victim, that's more than a glitch. That's a massive lead. Today, we're following that trail to the end. The layout at 7351 East Placida, Baja. Before we dissect what the back cameras missed, let's lock in the actual facts regarding the security at Nancy's house. I'm talking about confirmed, solid intel, not just TikTok theories or rumors. That front Nest doorbell is a certainty. The local sheriff's office has officially gone on record. The feed cut out around 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, 2026. Whatever visuals federal agents managed to pull, those final shots before the device went dark came from Google's internal servers, a fact confirmed by several major news organizations. Nobody is questioning that. Let's look at the house. Nancy Guthrie lived in Tucson's Sabino Canyon, on a plot featuring a pool and plenty of outdoor access points. Typical for that neighborhood, especially for homeowners concerned about safety, she had eyes on more than just the front porch. Insiders close to the case told ABC News that investigators found footage from sensors watching the pool and every corner of the yard. These weren't running 24/7. They only wake up when they sense movement, snapping quick photos or brief clips, creating what insiders call thumbnail snapshots. I want to be crystal clear here, specifically about these thumbnails, because where this info comes from is key. We're getting this from ABC's contacts who are privy to the ongoing probe. Neither the local sheriffs nor the feds have officially signed off on this yet, but it's a solid lead from a reputable source that no one else has debunked. I'm just noting it's only one report so far, even if it seems totally legit. So, here is a recap. The Nest doorbell definitely went offline at exactly 1:47 in the morning. Federal techs definitely have the motion-triggered shots from the side and back of the house. Those images consist of small stills caught whenever the sensors tripped. So, what was actually in those photos? ABC reports that during the week before she vanished, not the night of, but just leading up to it, The sensors kept going off because of various people lurking around, with strangers spotted hanging out near Nancy's pool and side gate several times before she was taken. The feds are looking at those pictures right now. Just think about that for a moment, because it changes how we see every single detail of what went down on February 1st. That context is absolutely vital. Then there's the claim about things being destroyed, per Banfield's source. This is where the narrative gets messy, and we have to be really careful about who is talking. On Ashley Banfield's latest podcast episode, which has been hammering away at contacts close to the police, they dropped a bombshell that says there was way more than just a doorbell camera involved. Someone with inside knowledge of the force told her that it wasn't only the front entrance camera that someone went after that night. Guthrie actually had several cameras, and they were all destroyed. The allegation, and remember this is just one person's account, is that several cameras were physically broken. They even took out the outdoor lighting, too. Several outdoor lights were shut down. I need to tread lightly here. This specific detail, the claim about wrecked surveillance gear, hasn't been backed up by major news sites since we started filming. Only one person told Banfield this. It is possible they are telling the truth. Maybe they have half the story, or the facts are just slightly off. It is feasible some lenses were broken without the situation being exactly as described. I am not certain. This is just one source, so keep that in mind. But let us look at the implications. Supposing a person destroyed several outdoor lenses and fixtures around the house during the kidnapping. Going past just the door ringer, we gain a clear insight into the level of prep work involved. Knocking out a bunch of security tech isn't something you do mid-kidnapping. That is not winging it. You do that after scouting the entire layout. It requires knowing exactly where every lens and bulb is located, and you have purposefully chosen which devices might actually catch your face. Cops have a specific term for that kind of legwork. They call it casing the joint or pre-operational recon. If they systematically hit several points, it points to a person who did their homework. But there is a snag where this narrative clashes with what ABC is saying. If a culprit truly dismantled the home safety system step by step, why would they leave the ones on the side and in the back alone? How did those stay untouched? That is a massive red flag. When you are on a mission to blind the security setup during a snatch and grab, but skip the yard units, you were either oblivious or you chose to ignore them for a reason. Since those devices caught people walking around just days earlier, folks who likely spotted them, claiming they missed the lenses feels like a reach. That leads us to the gear that was left alone, the untouched surveillance. We should dive into this, as it is the most revealing piece of the puzzle. The lens in the rear, the side path view, and the pool monitoring. The feds found all this hardware perfectly fine. No damage, no tampering, still mounted. The files show they were running, and the footage was ready to view. There are basically 3 reasons why these were not hit during the crime. Whichever theory holds water will reveal a lot about the strategy behind the whole ordeal. First theory, the kidnapper just flat out missed those specific devices. With the clock ticking and the adrenaline of grabbing Nancy, then fleeing, they obsessed over the door ringer and ignored the yard's perimeter. That is a plausible scenario, but it is tough to swallow if you consider those same lenses filmed visitors multiple times recently. If you or your accomplices spent time there leading up to the event, being so close to those motion-sensing units, you were clearly aware of their presence. You had strolled right past them. You had appeared on their film. Option 2. Those rear units were positioned in spots that were tough to reach or too risky. Perhaps sneaking around back to wreck them wasn't worth the extra time or the gamble. It might be that the main target was the front porch, the one lens most likely to catch a clear face from the street, while those in the backyard were just a minor concern. This theory makes more sense and fits a version where the front door was the primary breach point, leaving the rear of the lot as a secondary focus. Third possibility, there was no need to physically smash those lenses, not because they had blind spots or poor visibility, but because the perp ensured that whatever they filmed that night was neutralized. I suspect detectives are prioritizing this angle, judging by the language used by insiders, considering they described that specific night of footage as being remarkably bizarre. And given the calculated precision we have seen from the very beginning, if you know the layout well enough or have spent time on those grounds, mapped out the viewing ranges, and grasped the trigger points, you can navigate the yard without tripping them. You can plot a path that stays completely outside their field of vision. Or, and this gets technical, you don't have to hide if you have already ensured they won't record. The preview image issue, how these automated systems actually operate. Let me quickly break down the tech, because understanding these mechanics is vital to seeing why that missing video on the night of the crime matters. A trigger-based unit is nothing like a dashboard recorder. It does not keep a non-stop file running that you can just rewind. They are strictly reactive devices. Once the thermal sensors detect a shift within the designated area, the lens wakes up to snap a few photos, or a very brief video snippet. Every file is time-stamped and saved to a hard drive or a server. For the police, this implies the evidence gathered isn't a movie they can just watch. It functions more like a digital ledger, a collection of dated entries marking exactly when something moved. No movement means no file is created. There is zero video. It's just a blank space. Since the Bureau has the rear yard logs, they have the specific times, and they have every preview shot for each time those sensors tripped. Leading up to February 1st, that record is buzzing with activity. Constant files, various people, on multiple different days. Yet the night Nancy Guthrie was taken, informants say that log shows nothing. So, we have to ask what might lead to that. For a sensor-based system to fail to record while an intruder is present, only a handful of explanations actually make sense here. Either the place was totally dead, or the motion sensors just flatlined. Possibly from some interference, or even manual sabotage. Or maybe the clips were made but never got uploaded. Essentially, the link between the trigger and the cloud storage got severed somehow. Usually, a sensor trips, the lens wakes up, a recording starts, and the data travels over Wi-Fi to a server where it's saved for you. If that chain snaps, maybe the internet cuts out, the login fails, or the device just reboots. Or if someone changes the access codes, the camera might record locally, but the footage never hits your phone. Or the alerts could be silenced entirely by someone logged in remotely. I'll dive into that remote hacking angle in just a second, but we need to grasp this logic first because it's vital. Missing video on the night of February 1st isn't the same as having no cameras. It's also not the same as those cameras never being tripped. Depending on the setup and what went down, a blank history might tell us a lot more than a quiet night does. Now, about what strange actually implies in a federal case. Let's look closer at that word from the news source because it's being overlooked. The way they do. That's not just filler talk. It's a massive clue. When a federal investigator or they aren't just shooting the breeze. They are highlighting a major break in the usual routine. Here is why that matters. If those and the whole entry and exit took place in the driveway and never touched the back, then not suspicious wouldn't be odd. It would be the logical outcome. Detectives wouldn't care about a blank backyard camera if that area wasn't part of the crime. The fact that an insider called it odd proves the police were looking for something specific. They fully expected those lenses to catch something. Yet, they didn't. Why would they have that expectation? And the side yard, plus the entry theory the FBI is currently building. If the clues that Nancy Guthrie's abductor came in through the back, or staged there, then those blank feeds from the night of the crime aren't just quiet. They are suspiciously, glaringly empty. Analyze this using pure detective logic. The security feeds were active and recording people days before the incident. When a felony occurs on site, you check the footage, expecting to see an alert. A fig creeping. That void is the evidence. Not the film, the emptiness. This is a veteran. It's either or the gear didn't miss a thing. It's a signature of their tactics. Beside, arguably, the biggest mystery in this entire probe. Those backyard visitors. Let's revisit the pre-kidnapping tapes, since this detail has been largely ignored in mainstream discussions. Inside case noted that the motion sensor units in the rear and side of Nancy Guthrie's place filmed multiple people, not just one, not some. Blurry shadow at the edge of the lens, diverse individuals showing up on several occasions. Think about the massive investigative significance of that. In any kidnapping, especially one the FBI labels a targeted hit rather than a random act, The scouting phase is where detectives focus their energy. Snatching someone from their bed on a tight schedule in a quiet suburb requires no improvisation. You case the place, you walk the lawn, you track their daily habits, you find the gaps, camera spots, floodlights, locks, where they sleep, and when the house goes dark. And you do that days ahead of time, not that night. The fact that those rear sensors flagged several people earlier that week, picking them up right against the house, isn't just a minor point. It is likely the actual scouting mission caught on tape. Now, I have to be clear about our blind spots because they're huge. We have no idea who those people are. The FBI has the pictures and is trying to name them, but no reports say if they've identified anyone yet, whether they know the Guthrie family or are linked to the suspects. We don't know if there's a boring reason for the visits, like pool maintenance, gardeners, or neighbors, or if it's something darker. Here is the bottom line. The Bureau considered those shots vital enough for the official record, and case insiders felt they were important enough to tell the media. You won't see that in recordings that detectives have already written off. Here is the crucial link. A few. Strangers were spotted in the rear and side garden several times leading up to that terrible night. Those very same lenses showed nothing out of place. If the figures seen in previous days were scouting the location or mapping out the grounds, checking where the motion triggers were set, studying the field of view, they would have known precisely what the lenses would miss by February 1st. They would recognize the active zones and every blind spot. They would know if their path during the crime would set off any recording alerts. Scrutinizing a target beforehand isn't just about gathering data, it is about measuring the danger. You visit the site days ahead because you need to understand the environment you are entering. If you crept into that yard repeatedly to see when the recording kicked in or where alerts appeared, you would possess a perfect guide to where those lenses could not see. That implies on the night of February 1st, you either stayed clear of those monitored paths on purpose, or you found a way to bypass the security no matter where you moved. Either scenario suggests a level of planning that does not fit a random stranger, a simple opportunist, or a person acting on a whim. Both outcomes point to an individual who was intimately familiar with the layout, the Nest hardware, and the connection to Google. One specific detail regarding the video evidence remains largely overlooked, yet it links the federal inquiry to the core question of how the plot was orchestrated. The main entrance at the Guthrie residence utilized a Google Nest device. Federal agents managed to pull the video even after the hardware was destroyed. Because these specific Nest devices, like most Google smart home tools, run through a web-based network. The footage is not stored solely on the physical unit. It is uploaded to and held on remote servers, at least for a while. When investigators needed those files, they contacted Google directly. This collaboration to pull back end data from a tampered device has been confirmed by various mainstream media outlets. That partnership is a proven fact. It really took place. Now, here is the mystery that I believe has not been addressed clearly enough in public. Were the perimeter and side yard cameras part of that same network? Did they also operate under the same user profile with Google? No official confirmation of that has been released yet. It has not been definitively reported, and the truth would change the whole picture. If those sensors were part of that same smart home hub, the same login and digital network, then the person who cut the feed at 1:47 in the morning knew exactly how to navigate that setup. At the very minimum, they had enough knowledge of the layout to reach that unit and sabotage it. This suggests they might have had the password to the account, or had previous physical access to the hardware itself. Whether they simply pinpointed the hardware or maneuvered within the network's reach, they were playing inside that system's walls. If they managed to snag administrative credentials, every linked tool, including those rear yard lenses, would be wide open to them. You can handle Google Home profiles from miles away. All the hardware configurations, like how sensitive the sensors are, the filming cycles, and alert settings, are tweakable via the mobile app through any web link. Should someone infiltrate the Google profile tied to those specific devices, they could, depending on how things were set up, remotely kill the feed or muffle the sensors without ever laying a finger on the actual gear, leaving no cracked casing or shattered glass behind. Let me be perfectly clear here. I am not claiming this is definitely what went down, No official reports have validated this as a proven fact just yet. I am simply pointing out that this digital doorway exists, and it fits right in with the existing evidence. We have untouched hardware, zero video from the night of the snatching, and a witness who found that lack of footage bizarre. If the federal probe into Google's servers pulled more than just front door clips, if they recovered full sign-in logs, entry timestamps, and background activity from those rear sensors, that data would be sitting in the investigators' files right now, and it would reveal exactly if and how those devices were tampered with from a distance. We are in the dark about what the Bureau found in those records, but we know they went looking for it. And it is a fact that the backyard gear captured nothing out of the ordinary when Nancy was taken. Those 2 points side by side need way more scrutiny than they have received so far. That 1:47 a.m. window, I want to try to map out the visual record from the early hours of February 1st based on what has been confirmed and made public, because seeing the sequence makes the missing pieces much more obvious. The front door feed cuts to black at roughly 1:47 a.m. That is the official time provided by the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Whatever went down at the entryway, the sabotage of that lens, the approach, the break-in, it all happened right at that moment or just before. Now, what about those motion-triggered backyard units? What does their log look like for February 1st? Were they snapping preview images right up until a certain point and then just quitting? Did they go dark before 1:47, after it? Or did they keep running all night without flagging a single red flag? That is a detail we do not have access to, and it is incredibly important. If those sensors just stopped logging any movement in the hours leading up to 1:47 a.m., that paints one specific scenario. It implies the detection areas were either totally empty or the system was silenced before the front door camera was killed. That could suggest the intruder stayed in blind spots on purpose, or it might mean the system was compromised remotely before the physical strike at the front door. Conversely, if those lenses were still catching routine stuff all night long, a stray cat, lights from a passing vehicle, the usual false alarms, and then suddenly went dead right when the front door did at 1:47. Now that is a completely different story. That would point toward a coordinated, simultaneous blackout of multiple security systems. Imagine those lenses stayed active all through the night, covering the exact moment she was taken, yet didn't flag a single red flag. Not one person appeared. Zero movement toward the rear entrance. Just a typical, undisturbed evening, according to those feeds. That forces us to rethink how they got in, and if the front door hypothesis even works. When an insider calls the tape strange, it implies detectives are stuck on a puzzle piece that simply won't fit the current narrative. Had the visual evidence been straightforward, meaning if the back stayed dark because the kidnapper used the front, no one would be calling the footage weird. They would just say it makes sense. Calling it odd reveals a major contradiction in the evidence. This indicates the events around 1:47 a.m. involve more layers than that single doorbell ping reveals. Consider digital interference. It is time to tackle the idea of outside manipulation head-on, as I have been leading up to this, while clearly distinguishing hard facts from my own deductions. Here is what we know. No one physically smashed the cameras in the yard or on the side. Federal agents found them in perfect order. Those same units were snapping preview shots just days before she vanished, catching various people on several days. But on February 1st, they recorded absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. An informant labeled that peculiar, and that is the foundation we are working from. From here on, I am connecting dots based on those core truths. Today's high-tech home security, like those used by safety-focused families in Arizona that produce images mentioned by ABC News, are essentially small computers. They operate on internal software. They link up via the local internet connection. Control happens via cloud apps, and since they rely on accounts, they possess digital doorways that can be opened from afar. This simplest way to mess with these feeds doesn't even need some Hollywood-style hacker. You do not have to crack codes or find secret software glitches. All it takes is getting into the user profile. Provided you have the login info for the smart home app running the show, just the email and secret code, you can take control from a laptop halfway across the globe. You can tweak configurations, Frequently, you can just shut off the movement alerts. You can switch them to a privacy status. Based on how things are set up, you could choose exactly what the system ignores. This is the crucial link to the rest of the case. If a person had a foot in the door at Nancy Guthrie's place, real-world access to her space. Snagging those passwords is not technically hard. They could be on a note or saved in a computer browser. Maybe they were handed over to a trusted person, or perhaps they were swiped by someone who hung out there and just waited for the right moment. To be clear, I am not claiming this happened. No official has verified that the security accounts were actually breached in this case yet. Look, the path is clear, and it fits a crime showing. Signs of heavy planning and some kind of inside help from the jump. Instead of remote tampering, maybe the cameras just missed it all because the kidnapping happened in their blind spots. But that means believing someone who scouted that yard for days, someone caught by those sensors over and over, somehow pulled off a snatch and grab at that. One house on February 1st without ever tripping a single alarm. Maybe. But detectives aren't buying it because they called the whole thing odd. It's that inside job angle. Let's tie everything together that we've gone over today. When you look at the timeline, the camera evidence paints a very clear picture of the plan. You heard us talk plenty about someone having access to the house. The back door theory. The idea that someone who knew the Guthrie home, the layout, the habits, the security, either did it or told the killer how to do it. The video evidence, if you look closely, lines up with an inside job in a way we can actually prove. Think about what an insider would actually know about this place. They'd know exactly where that doorbell camera was. They'd know it watched the street, the driveway, and everyone at the front door. They'd realize that lens was the biggest risk of getting caught for anyone coming through the front of the house, so they'd kill it. They'd also know about those backyard cameras. They'd know those were triggered by movement. They'd know the angles, where they pointed, and exactly what they could see. They'd even know the Wi-Fi network those cameras were using. If they had the login, they could even access the system from their phone. Now, match that knowledge with what actually happened. Doorbell camera, targeted and killed. Backyard cameras, untouched and still working. The back cameras caught several people in the days leading up to it. Those people clearly knew the cameras were watching them. They were filmed during what looks like a scouting mission. But on the night of the kidnapping, zero footage. Weird. If you were planning this with inside info, you'd do exactly what we see here. You'd smash the cameras that were most likely to show your face. You'd handle the backyard ones differently, maybe through the app, by dodging the sensors, or by keeping the crime out front while the doorbell was dead. An inside job isn't always about what a criminal does. It's about what they didn't do and why it still worked out for them. The back cameras weren't touched, yet they saw absolutely nothing. That specific pattern is exactly where the police are looking right now. The coverage so far and the evidentiary trail as it has unfolded in the months since February 1st. Let me walk you through the current focus on those camera leads. At this stage, the front door, clips, and whatever the feds pulled from the Google Cloud are likely well understood by the team. The detectives have had that data for a long time. Whether it provided a clear face or not, they have already processed it. The footage from the back and side yards, specifically those early snapshots of several people, is almost certainly a top priority for identification. The feds possess those files. They are checking them against every database, known contact, and anyone with a reason to be near that house in the 9 days leading up to February 1st. Whether that work has led to any names or if those leads have actually pushed the case forward remains confidential. The dead zone during the actual snatch, that lack of activity where there should have been plenty, is the lead they are chasing hardest. It is not just about a photo. It defines the entire strategy. Figuring out why those lenses went dark or missed the action tells the team how this crime was pulled off. And knowing how it was done reveals who had the specific skills and knowledge to do it that way. The person who flagged this as strange is not finished looking into it. And I would bet the feds are not either. That silence, hours of nothing from gear that had been capturing people for days, is a puzzle that needs a solve. And when federal agents find a mystery that lacks an answer, they do not just walk away from it. They scrutinize every detail until the truth reveals itself or the evidence points them in a new direction. Right now, they are tugging hard on that camera gap. Here is the context. Let us step back for a moment because it is vital to see how the video evidence fits into the full scope of the Nancy Guthrie investigation. This channel has explored how this was likely a targeted hit, the precise nature of the snatch, the surgical approach, the timing, the staging possibilities, the questions about the second ransom note, the rear entry angle, the mystery surrounding the Pima County officer tied to a different abduction, and any potential links to this specific case. The visual files, all of it. The camera situation fits into a larger story in a way that provides clarity rather than just more data. It is revealing because it offers a specific look into the planning phase of this crime, even if not the act itself. In the prior days, several people were seen in that yard on multiple occasions, with cameras logging motion and snapping thumbnails constantly. But when the crime happened, nothing but silence. If this were some random act, if someone just saw a chance and took it, the digital record would not look like this. A random perp does not loiter in a target's backyard for days before making their move. A random perp does not disable a doorbell camera while wearing gloves, showing they knew exactly where it was. A typical criminal doesn't just walk past backyard security without leaving a trace or purposely making sure every lens is blind. When you look at the total lack of video, it points straight toward a calculated hit, a high-level kidnapping that was mapped out way ahead of time. The people behind this knew exactly how the house was laid out and where the alarms sat. They dealt with the surveillance footage with total precision. Whether they physically smashed the gear, snuck through the shadows, or hacked the system from afar. This isn't some random prowler. This is the work of someone who did their homework. The unfinished cycle. Let's wrap this up exactly where the detectives are stuck right now, staring at a lead that leads nowhere. The feds actually have clips from those side and back porch cameras taken just days before Nancy vanished. Different faces, different times. Those recordings are real. Bureau agents have that footage. But if they've tracked those people down, or what it means for the hunt, remains a total mystery to us. Yet those exact same lenses didn't catch a single thing on the night of February 1st. And insiders close to the case think that complete silence is beyond weird. That massive void between the earlier activity and the total blackout when it mattered is easily the biggest. Lingering mystery surrounding Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. The feeds just died out. Did the grab happen entirely out front, meaning the back cameras just had nothing to look at? Or did someone creep through the yard knowing exactly where the lenses were looking and where they weren't? Could it be that? A person with the login codes turned everything off from their phone without leaving any fingerprints behind. Or maybe we're missing a piece of the puzzle entirely. Something the police are keeping quiet that explains why the screens went dark. Your guess is as good as mine. Outside of the inner circle at the Bureau, nobody has the full story. But my source says enough to confirm that even the pros are still searching for clarity. Until that happens, until we know why those working motion sensors in Nancy's yard stayed frozen the night she was taken, that empty footage tells a story of its own. Nancy Guthrie vanished on February 1st, 2026. She's the mother of the Today Show's own Savannah Guthrie. At 73 years old, she was snatched right from her Tucson, Arizona home. The FBI is still actively working this kidnapping case. As of now, the investigation remains open, with more questions than answers. Each new detail, every timestamp, every overlooked clue keeps hope alive that the truth is still within reach. Investigators continue to follow leads, carefully piecing together a timeline that refuses to stay silent. For the family, the waiting never stops. Time moves forward, but the search stands still in that one unanswered moment. And yet, this case is not forgotten, because as long as people keep looking, keep asking, and keep remembering, there is still a chance that one day the truth will finally come to light. If you know anything, please reach out to 1-800-CALL-FBI or visit tips.fbi.gov. Hit subscribe to stay updated because we're digging deeper into this, and the leads we're chasing are starting to heat up.